Hi, this is Gary with MacMost Now. On today's episode, let's talk about how to select what to sync to your iOS device. I've been getting a lot of questions recently about people trying to figure out how to sync what they want to their iOS device, particularly when they have more than one, say an iPhone and an iPad, and they want some music on one and some music on another, some apps on one, some apps on another. Well, it's very easy to do as long as you understand the settings in iTunes and also the settings on your device. Now let's start here in iTunes. Now I have an old iPhone plugged in here to sync and I want to examine what's on it and how to sync things to it. I can click here on the iPhone and jump right to it. I'd rather go to the sidebar, so I choose View Sidebar, and then I can select it and see clearly which devices I have connected. Once I do, I can see at the top here the different sections of all the syncing prefs. So it starts with Summary, Info, Apps, etc. It's very important that you have this selected and you've identified these at the top in order to dig down into the settings. So let's start here on this Summary page, the most important one. And here's where at the bottom you'll find all sorts of information about how you're going to sync. And one of the things here is whether or not it automatically syncs when you're connected, whether you can allow Wi-Fi syncing, things like that. You can also choose some other functions, but for this example I'm going to leave everything here turned off just to make it as simple as possible so we can dig down into the individual settings. So let's start with music. Music's the easiest because it's pretty straightforward. Now in order to sync music from your iTunes collection to the iPhone you need to turn on Sync Music, so check it there, and you can choose between the entire music library, which works if you have a small library and just want everything on your device, or you can check off Selected Playlists, Artists, Albums, and Genres. And now you can basically go through here and select exactly what you want. So if you want certain artists to sync you can check them off here, just specific albums. You can also select playlists. So you could go in iTunes and make a playlist of the music you want on your device or several playlists and just choose to sync those playlists and the songs there will sync. Now it's important to note you won't get duplicates. So for instance if I had a playlist of some of my favorite songs and some of those included some Beatles songs, by checking both Beatles and that playlist I don't get the songs twice. I get the songs once, but the playlist will be there and I can play it, and I can also go to the Beatles as a group or the albums and play those there. So the song's there once even though you have multiple ways to access a song, just as you do in iTunes on your Mac. Now here's the key piece of information. This setting is not a setting on your Mac, it's a setting for each individual device. So if I have an iPad plugged in here as well as an iPhone and I switch to it and go to the music section here, I can have different settings. So I can have two playlists, one for my iPhone and one for my iPad. Choose on the iPhone to sync music, only selected playlists, and check off the playlist for the iPhone. And for the iPad do the same except choose the playlist for the iPad. Or any combination, so I can choose specific groups, specific playlists for each device. So your devices can have different music on them depending upon selections for each device here. Just important to choose your device here, choose music, and then choose the settings for that device. Now the same is true for movies and TV shows. But let's look at apps. So apps, the interface looks very different because not only can you choose what apps to go on your device, but you can arrange them here. I'm not going to go into that now, but you can see how you can click install, and if it says install it means it's not installed in the device. Click install and it will install it the next time you sync. And if it says it's already installed then you don't need to do that, but you can uninstall it and then sync and it will remove it. You can search for apps if you have a long list like I usually do, or you could sort them in different ways. And you can set these different for your different devices. So I can choose some apps to sync to an iPhone, some to sync to an iPod Touch, and it remembers the settings for each device as I plug it in and move between them here in iTunes. Now here's the really important thing. If you look below this you'll see a checkbox here for automatically sync new apps. Now I think this is what gives people a lot of trouble. That's on by default. So you get a new app on your iPhone and then you find out next time you sync your iPad the app automatically goes to it, and that might not be what you want. So you want to make sure you turn that off and turn it off for each device. If I turn it off here for this iPhone and then sync an iPad, it will be on for that iPad, so I have to turn it off for the iPad as well. And once it's off you can you can manage your stuff a little bit better because it won't automatically be doing that. And finally we've got photos. So photos are interesting because you have different things you can sync photos from. iTunes doesn't handle photos, so it has to take photos from either iPhoto or from folders. So you choose which one you want to use, and most Mac users would choose iPhoto. And then you can do the same thing here. Choose everything or select, just like with music, albums, events, even faces. But we're not done quite yet because you'll still get content onto your iOS devices even if you didn't intend for it to get there, because now we all use iCloud, and iCloud will actually put things onto your device after you say purchase an app or get some music. So let's take a look in our settings on our iOS device. I'm going to use my iPhone here, and you go all the way down in your settings to the iTunes and App Store setting. Now in here I've got several settings. Let's assume you're not using iTunes Maps and that turns off. You still have things here down below, music, apps, and books for automatic downloads. So what happens here is if you have those on and say you purchase some new music or a book or an app on another device, automatically you'll be added to your phone. So if you find that happening on your second device or a device you share with somebody that's using the same Apple ID, like a child, that's why. It's because you have to turn those off or you're automatically going to get new content delivered to all your iOS devices. You have to do this for each one. So if you have an iPad and an iPhone and you don't want that to happen, you have to go to both of them and turn it off in both places. So there you go. I hope that gives you a clear understanding about how to select what syncs to your iOS devices from your computer and from the cloud. Till next time, this is Gary with MacMost Now. Want more video tutorials? Just go to MacMost.com, click on the videos link at the top of the page, and then you can view all of the hundreds of MacMost videos by category.